I never thought moving to the city for college would lead me down such a dark path. The excitement of independence quickly faded when I met my new roommate, Sarah. At first, she seemed nice enough, quiet, kept to herself, always wore dark clothes. But there was something off about her that I couldn't quite put my finger on. The first few weeks were uneventful. We'd exchange pleasantries in passing, but mostly stayed out of each other's way. I was busy with classes and making new friends, while Sarah spent most of her time in her room with the door closed. It wasn't until about a month in that strange things started happening. I'd come home to find my belongings slightly out of place, as if someone had been rifling through them. At first I brushed it off, figuring I was just being forgetful. But then I started noticing other oddities, shadows moving in the corner of my eye, whispers in the night that seemed to come from Sarah's room. One evening, I was studying late in the kitchen when I heard a blood-curdling scream coming from Sarah's bedroom. I rushed to her door and knocked frantically. "Sarah, are you okay?" No response. I tried the handle, but it was locked. Just as I was about to call campus security, the door swung open. Sarah stood there, looking perfectly calm. "Is everything all right?" "I heard screaming," I said, my heart still racing. Sarah tilted her head and gave me an unsettling smile. "Oh, I was just watching a scary movie. Sorry if I disturbed you." But I could have sworn the TV wasn't on. As the weeks went on, the incidents escalated. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to find Sarah standing at the foot of my bed, just staring at me. When I'd confront her about it the next day, she'd act confused and insist she'd been asleep the whole time. Objects started disappearing from my room, only to reappear days later in bizarre places: my hairbrush in the freezer, my textbook stacked in the bathtub. When I asked Sarah about it, she'd just shrug and say, "Maybe you're sleepwalking?" I tried to rationalize it all, telling myself I was just stressed from school. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. The breaking point came when I found a shrine hidden in the back of Sarah's closet while looking for a sweater she said I could borrow. Candles, strange symbols, and most disturbingly photos of me sleeping, dozens of them, pinned to the wall. My blood ran cold as I stared at the photos. How long had she been watching me? What else had she done while I slept? I heard the front door open and quickly closed the closet, my heart pounding. "Find that sweater?" Sarah called from the living room. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, thanks. I'll bring it right out." As I left her room, Sarah was standing in the hallway, blocking my path. Her eyes seemed to bore into me. "Did you see anything interesting in there?" she asked, her voice unnaturally calm. I forced a smile. "Nope, just grabbed the sweater." "Thanks again." I hurried past her to my room, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone to text my friend Jess, "I need to get out of here. Can I stay with you tonight?" Just as I hit send, the lights in my room flickered and went out. In the darkness, I heard Sarah's voice right outside my door. "Oh, Rumi," she sang in a sing-song voice, "why don't you come out and play?" I scrambled to find my phone, but it was suddenly ice cold to the touch. The screen lit up with a message, but it wasn't from Jess. It was a string of strange symbols, the same ones I'd seen in Sarah's shrine. The doorknob started to turn slowly. I backed away, my heart in my throat. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a nightmare. "You shouldn't have looked in my closet," Sarah's voice came through the door, distorted and inhuman. "Now you have to join us." "Join who?" I managed to choke out. A chilling laugh echoed through the room. "The others, of course. All the roommates who came before you. They're here with us now. Can't you feel them?" Suddenly, I felt cold hands grabbing at me from all directions. I screamed and thrashed, but they held me tight. The door burst open, revealing Sarah, or what used to be Sarah. Her eyes were pitch black, her mouth stretched into an impossible grin. "Welcome to the family," she hissed. I closed my eyes, praying to wake up from this nightmare. But when I opened them again, I was no longer in my room. I found myself in a vast, dark space, surrounded by flickering shadows that vaguely resembled human forms. In the distance, I could hear the faint echoes of screams and pleas for help. "Where am I?" I called out, my voice trembling. Sarah's disembodied voice answered, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "Home, dear roommate. Our eternal home." As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I began to make out faces in the shadows, dozens, maybe hundreds of them. All wore expressions of terror and despair. With a jolt of horror, I realized these must be the others Sarah had mentioned, previous roommates, trapped in this nightmarish realm. One of the shadows moved closer, taking on a more solid form. It was a young woman, probably around my age, with hollow eyes and a gaunt face. "I was the first," she whispered. "Sarah was my roommate 2 years ago. I thought she was just eccentric at first, but then..." Her voice trailed off as she gestured to the endless void around us. "We've all been waiting for you," she continued. "Sarah always finds a way to bring more souls to this place. She feeds on our fear, our despair." I shook my head in disbelief. This can't be real. There has to be a way out. The girl's expression turned to pity. "We've all tried. For years, decades even. But there is no escape from here." As if to punctuate her words, an otherworldly howl echoed through the darkness, sending chills down my spine. The shadows around us began to writhe and twist, taking on monstrous forms. "She's coming," the girl whispered urgently. "Whatever you do, don't show your fear. It only makes her stronger." I tried to steady my breathing as a familiar figure emerged from the swirling shadows. It was Sarah, but not as I had known her. Her body seemed to shift and change, sometimes appearing human, other times morphing into something utterly alien and terrifying. "Are you ready for eternity, roomie?" Sarah's voice boomed, shaking the very fabric of this strange reality. "We're going to have so much fun together." I wanted to run, to scream, to fight back somehow. But I was paralyzed, rooted to the spot as Sarah drew closer. Her hand, now more claw than human, reached out towards me. "Please," I whimpered, unable to maintain my composure. "Why are you doing this?" Sarah's face split into that impossible grin once more. "Why? Oh, my dear, sweet roommate. I do this because I can. Because there's nothing quite like the taste of a soul consumed by terror." As her clawed hand touched my face, I felt an icy coldness spreading through my body. My vision began to blur, and I could feel myself slipping away, becoming one with the shadows around me. In that moment, a small part of my mind clung to hope. There had to be a way out, some weakness in Sarah's power that could be exploited. As my consciousness faded, I made a silent vow to find it, no matter how long it took. The last thing I heard before the darkness took me completely was Sarah's chilling laughter, echoing through the void. "Welcome home, roommate. Forever and ever and ever." I don't know how long I drifted in that endless void, surrounded by the whispers and wails of Sarah's other victims. Time had no meaning here. It could have been days, weeks, or even years. My mind teetered on the edge of madness, clinging desperately to memories of my life before this nightmare began. Just when I thought I'd lose myself completely to the darkness, something changed. A faint glimmer of light caught my attention, so dim I thought I might be hallucinating. But as I focused on it, the light grew stronger, taking on a bluish hue. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. "Do you see it too?" a voice whispered beside me. I turned to find the gaunt girl who had first spoken to me when I arrived in this hellish place. I nodded, afraid to speak lest the light disappear. "It's never done that before," she said, a hint of wonder in her voice. Maybe it means something's changing." As if in response to her words, the light flared brightly, momentarily illuminating our surroundings. In that brief flash, I saw countless faces staring back at me, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. And in the distance, I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold. Sarah, or the thing that had once been Sarah, writhing in apparent pain. The darkness rushed back in, but that image was seared into my mind. For the first time since I'd been trapped here, I felt a spark of hope. Sarah wasn't all-powerful. Something about that light had hurt her. I reached out towards where I'd last seen the pulsing glow, and to my surprise, I felt a warmth against my fingertips. It was faint, but undeniably there. "I can feel it," I whispered to the girl beside me. "Can you?" She hesitated, then slowly extended her hand. As soon as she touched the invisible warmth, she gasped. It's like I can remember who I was before this place. My name was Emily. Emily. The name hit me like a physical blow. Suddenly, I could see her as she must have been before Sarah took her, young, vibrant, full of life. The contrast with the hollow shell beside me was heartbreaking. "We have to spread this to the others," I said urgently. "Whatever this is, it's weakening Sarah's hold on us." Together, Emily and I moved through the darkness, guiding others to touch the warm light. With each person who made contact, the glow grew stronger. Names were remembered, personalities rekindled. The air around us began to hum with energy. But our actions didn't go unnoticed. A furious shriek tore through the void, and I felt a chill of terror run down my spine. Sarah had realized what was happening. "You ungrateful little worms," her voice boomed, shaking the very fabric of this reality. "After all I've done for you, giving you a home, a family." The darkness around us began to churn and roil, taking on monstrous shapes. I saw glimpses of teeth, claws, and eyes filled with malevolent hunger. Sarah was throwing everything she had at us. "Don't let go of the light," I shouted to the others. "It's our only chance." As the shadows closed in, I closed my eyes and focused on the warmth beneath my fingers. I thought of my life before this nightmare, of my family and friends. I thought of all the things I still wanted to do, the person I wanted to become. And as I did, I felt the light grow even brighter. When I opened my eyes, I was momentarily blinded. The darkness had been pushed back, revealing a swirling vortex of blue-white energy. At its center stood a figure that radiated pure light, a stark contrast to the writhing mass of shadows that was Sarah. "This ends now," the figure spoke, its voice resonating with power. "You have no claim on these souls, creature of darkness." Sarah let out an inhuman howl of rage and lunged towards the glowing entity. But as soon as she touched the light, her form began to disintegrate. "No," she screamed. "They're mine. Mine." I watched in awe as Sarah's monstrous form crumbled away, revealing glimpses of the human she had once been. In her final moments, I saw fear in her eyes, the same fear she had inflicted on so many others. As Sarah vanished, the vortex of light expanded, engulfing everything. I felt a sensation of weightlessness, and then I gasped, my eyes flying open as I sat up in bed. My bed. In my dorm room. Sunlight streamed through the window, and I could hear the familiar sounds of campus life outside. For a moment, I sat there in shock, trying to process what had happened. Had it all been a dream? But it had felt so real, so vivid. I could still feel the lingering warmth of that mysterious light on my skin. A knock at my door made me jump. "Come in," I called out hesitantly. The door opened, revealing a girl I'd never seen before. She looked nervous, clutching a small suitcase. "Hi," she said with a shy smile. "I'm your new roommate." The housing office said there was a mix-up with the assignments, and "Are you okay?" I realized I must have gone pale. "I'm fine," I managed to say. "Just had a weird dream." "I'm sorry, what was your name?" "Emily," she replied. My heart nearly stopped. It couldn't be a coincidence. As I looked at her more closely, I realized she bore a striking resemblance to the gaunt girl from my dream, but full of life, just as I had imagined her before. "It's nice to meet you, Emily," I said, my mind racing. "Why don't you come in and get settled? I have a feeling we have a lot to talk about." As Emily entered the room, I noticed something that made my breath catch in my throat. There, peeking out from her suitcase, was a small blue crystal that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of recognition in hers. She knew. Somehow, she remembered too. "So," Emily said softly, "I guess we made it out after all." I nodded, a mix of relief and lingering fear washing over me. "Yeah, I guess we did. But what now?" Emily's expression turned serious. "Now we make sure it never happens again. Sarah might be gone, but there are other dark things out there. We've seen behind the veil, and we can't unsee it." She was right, of course. Our experience in that nightmarish realm had changed us forever. We couldn't simply go back to our normal lives and pretend it never happened. "We'll need to be careful," I said. "There might be others out there like us, people who've escaped from places like that. But there might also be more creatures like Sarah." Emily nodded, her hand unconsciously moving to touch the crystal in her suitcase. "This will help us," she said. "I don't know how I know, but I'm sure of it." It's like a piece of that light came back with us. As if in response to her words, the crystal pulsed brightly for a moment. I felt a wave of warmth wash over me, chasing away the lingering chill of our ordeal. "So, what do you say, roomie?" Emily asked with a tentative smile. "Ready to be ghost hunters or demon slayers or whatever it is we are now?" Despite everything, I found myself smiling back. I guess I am. But maybe we start small? I hear the library's supposed to be haunted. Emily laughed, and for a moment, it felt like we were just two normal college students embarking on a new adventure. But as I helped her unpack, I couldn't shake the feeling that our real journey was just beginning. That night, as I lay in bed listening to Emily's soft breathing from across the room, I stared at the shadows on the ceiling. They seemed to move and shift, taking on familiar, terrifying shapes. But then I blinked, and they were just ordinary shadows again. I turned to look at the crystal sitting on our shared desk, its faint blue glow a comforting presence in the darkness. Whatever came next, whatever horrors we might face, we wouldn't be facing them alone. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a silent promise to all those we'd left behind in that other place. We'd find a way to save them, to bring them back to the light. And if we encountered any more creatures like Sarah along the way, well, they'd better watch out. Because now we knew the truth. The darkness wasn't all powerful. There was always light to be found, even in the deepest shadows. And armed with that knowledge, we were ready to face whatever nightmares the world had in store for us. Little did I know, as I finally succumbed to exhaustion, that our battle was far from over. In the corners of the room, unseen by either Emily or myself, the shadows began to coalesce, taking on a vaguely humanoid shape. 2 pinpricks of red light gleamed where eyes should be, fixed on the softly glowing crystal. A whisper, so faint it might have been just the wind, slithered through the room. "Found you."